Hey everyone, Hazza here, welcome back to my channel. The Swiss stage for VALORANT Masters London has concluded, and that means only one thing. It is time for the second part in my Pick'em series to give you all a guide as to who I think is going to win and lift the trophy on June 21st. We ended up with 70 points coming out of that preliminary stage. My camera's just blocking it, but it puts us in the top 37%, so above average, and I think considering how the Swiss stage ended up panning out, I'm pretty happy with our results. Of course, we're aiming for the top 20 to get that second successive gold buddy. We had perfect Swiss picks last time. I'm always going on about it, but the streak is over. Let's take a look. So for our advancing team, win 2-0, we put Vitality, which netted us an extra 20 points, bonus points. Leviathan was the second 2-0 team, and we also had them as well. So combining the 50 and the 20 there, we get 70 overall. Unfortunately, we were let down by some of the other teams. For NRG, the warning signs were definitely there. I think Kiko dropping almost 60 kills to carry them over the line in the first game raised the alarm a little bit. I was kind of expecting a step up from everyone else. Scuba had a couple of moments where maybe he was under the microscope in regional play heading into this one, but it wasn't enough on the whole. Some losses which ended up kicking them out of the tournament. To Foot, who make it through as a surprise team. A few people who did end up in the 95 points bracket did go ahead and pick them, and I think I was one of the few that underrated them quite substantially, actually. In fact, I went for Full Sense instead. They got absolutely destroyed by Foot in the opening game. It was the Primi show, but the supporting cast maybe not doing as much. GE XLG on the final day was definitely a big one to get another Chinese team in playoffs. But yeah, it means no extra Pacific teams, just the one from Americas, and of course all three for EMEA making it through to playoffs. So exciting times to be an EMEA enjoyer. Unfortunately, that is not where I laid my hat to kick off this tournament. So we don't get maximum points, but we could definitely be much more worse for wear. So I think I'm happy with my Swiss performance overall. A quick reminder before we get into my selections for playoffs as well, we have a Pick'ems group which you can play along with at home by submitting yours from the in-game client. You can join this with a code in the description which will be available to you, and if you're looking for a place to watch the games, there is no better place, of course, than my own co-streams. We got featured on the main broadcast. That was really cool. We've done a few of these from the arena now as well, so getting the added benefit of doing some interviews with players on site. I will leave those in a card in the corner as well if you want to go ahead and check those out. We've spoken to Sop and Raga, just to name a few, with a few more coming up for the playoff stage as well. So let's see who I've got winning the whole damn thing. Heading into the playoff picks then, this is the bracket that we've ended up with. All of the top seeds were drawn randomly from a ball, which meant that they get to pick which opponent they wanted in the first round. The first team to be picked, I believe, was G2, so they got XLG. The next team available was EDG, they went with Foot. Paper X, Leviathan, and Heretics left to play Vitality. This is not the order that the games will be played in, but the order that we will follow to pick who we think is going to win. Starting off with G2 versus XLG. Now, on paper, this should be the most one-sided game at the start of this playoffs bracket. I said the exact same thing when they faced NRG. I got the chance to speak to Raga after their qualifying match against GE though, and he said that confidence is running high. This is something that he has struggled with alongside some of the other players in this team historically. They don't like to play these Americas teams. The Americas teams love to play them. G2 have faced XLG a couple of times now in these events. I think most notably, of course, recently in Santiago, but Toronto last year as well, when XLG were one of the top seeded teams. G2 were the opponents that they had to play against in the following rounds. They played a lot of Sentinels as well, so opponents which they are very used to at this point in time, but I think that also leans into a G2 side which are incredibly strong. They have been playing at a high level domestically. When it comes to the agents and what it is that they've been running, you've got to be thinking about Lotus in the veto here, with XLG still using that triple Sentinel. G2 are the sort of team that that should be able to figure that out, where I really expected NRG to be that in Swiss. It took individuals to bail them out of that situation. But yeah, I'm really liking what G2 are running. I think their Vice suits this meta quite nicely. It's great at shutting people down. Baby Bay has looked at a high level. If he can translate that to the international stage, I think it's going to mean big things for G2 going deep in this tournament specifically, but I have full faith in them right now. On the XLG side, in terms of who has to perform, Happyway has always been their most consistent player, I would say, at global events, but we saw a step up from Lysor, really important in them getting through that GE game, specifically on Breeze. I think he had a lot of big moments, and that made a whole lot of difference. But yeah, Raga's got to be on full confidence as well. I think there's probably just too many factors that have to fall into place for this to work for Gilai, where G2 should be perfectly prepared for handling them in this game. So simple first pick for me, at least. I'd put G2 going through there. Moving on to EDG versus Foot. Now, I would say this is probably the least clear-cut game in these opening matches that we've got for the playoff stage here in London, because Foot surprised a lot of people, myself included. Now, we knew that the level was definitely there from this team. Sop has shown that he's built a fantastic relationship with Zeus as this 1-2 punch. This double duelist that they've been running since they made the player change, speaking to Sop specifically, he said he wasn't expecting himself to be the star of this team when they have Zeus, but they've been able to enable each other really well. That also brought on by the coaching staff, Vlad and Bambino. I think their preparation for a lot of the games that we've seen so far has been near perfect, honestly. When you look at, for example, the Full Sense match, a lot of very deliberate openings in how they wanted to start rounds defensively against a team which maybe hadn't brought those extra layers of preparation, got exploited quite handily. HazzaJC has stepped up massively in terms of his performances as the old guard on this team now with the changes that have been made. Even speaking to the newer players as well, Crostali, who kept his place from kickoff, which I think a few people maybe found a little bit surprising if there were going to be sweeping changes for Foot. Crostali has shown us many more facets to his game, specifically a clutch ability, which was notably absent from this Foot team post Mr. Fallen and Cracks, I think. Those players specifically in the past were the ones that you would see make the difference in such situations, but Crostali holding his nerve in some really important rounds, especially against NRG, to get them through the Swiss stage. So I'm feeling super confident about Foot on the whole. Sociable's calling has also looked pretty good in the mid-round. But this is an EDG which have started to find their place again in CN and potentially globally now as well, reappearing post-Santiago in a meta which entirely facilitates how Kung wants to play on Jet, with the blades, with the op-out, in your face, the kind of Valorant which thrust them to global stardom and a Champs Trophy a couple of years ago now. Of course, there's been roster changes since then, coach change as well. Autumn has come in, and I think it has taken a little bit of time for him to get hands-on and find the lineups, the compositions that really work for him. There was a few trials and tribulations in the main stage in terms of what it is that they wanted to run, and I think coming into playoffs, I wasn't fully confident that EDG were going to be back at their best, but they have made things a little more streamlined now. It's a lot of the raised Jet that you'd seen in the past. It's, yeah, Kung playing the agents that he's most familiar with. I think Smoggy individually has shown us a peak performance for himself. He's another one of those players, kind of like Happyway from XLG, that you're wanting to get the best out of when you come to global events from CN. And I think just watching him pick up the MVP from stage 1 is definitely a big boost to the confidence. It's not been an easy road for EDG. I think the last time we saw them go deep at an international was Bangkok a couple of years ago now, where that was off the back of their champs winning campaign. They've made roster changes in that time. Players have come in and out trying to account for the Neon meta, which didn't really suit them. Double duelist even at Paris last year. Not fully developed, I think, to the best of their qualities. Kung having some surgery, I believe it was. So he wasn't wasn't able to contribute as much as we have seen him do in the past, but now really, I think this is an opportunity for them to kick on. Against Foot, it's so hard to call. In some ways, I want to go EDG just based on that international history, the fact that they do play their main stages in CN on multiple sort of Masters grade stages. They're very used to it, but Foot have also had time in Swiss to climatize. And then when you take a step back and actually bring it down to the map veto, looking at it across the board, EDG's best map is Breeze. Breeze is Foot's insta-ban. I think just looking at that initial part of the veto and how it goes from that point onwards, and the preparation that Foot have been bringing to the table as well, coming in hot, I probably lean towards the EMEA team here. Now, do I think that EDG could still go ahead and win this game? Yes, if you're skeptical on this and you want to pick EDG, go for it in your own pick'ems, but I think I'm going to lean more towards Foot here. Maybe it's recency bias, but I have them coming out on top in the second game. Moving on to the next game, PaperX Lev. This is going to be a really exciting game, a fiery one. PaperX, given the second to last choice between Lev and Vitality, the two 2-0 teams, this is the lesser of the two evils in their eyes. It's what they've gone for. And I think, as the team which probably has the best roster for the meta that we're in currently and can really play to their strengths when we've seen them play a lot of Jet Rays in the past, a lot of Jet and Phoenix even when we think about their Corrode comp, I believe it was, or maybe it was Waylay Phoenix. They were playing with the Phoenix quite a bit back in the previous year and in the start of this year. This is going to look quite nice for them. Now, Lev, on the other hand, also, very strong Phoenix-wielding team when we look across the board and sort of where we're at right now, moving away from this super heavy Neon dive meta to being a little bit more balanced. Lev have actually kind of impressed me because they've still been playing the Neon. They've got a player called Neon too, which makes it a little bit interesting, but they've been able to get value from it. As the agent's strengths still are her instant casting utility when you're in the running animation, even if the speed has been slowed a little bit, especially while jumping and strafing. They've looked pretty good with that. They've looked efficient. They've been able to carry that forwards, and I think that's where a lot of the questions really lied about this team. Their chamber usage has also been quite nice, and I think that is a strong counter to a team that does just want to run at your face and W game you all the time, because if you can find that opening pick, TP off onto a safer line and really call these effective rotations to then back that up a little bit more, yeah, the line control that Lev can have is pretty strong. PaperX, in terms of how they played in their stage at home, well, they did lose to GE. They had to go through lowers to qualify in the end into Ho Chi Minh when they beat T1. Then they faced up against GE in that rematch and onto the game against Full Sense. Just went from strength to strength, really. The general consensus with this team always seems to be that they're never going to cruise through the upper bracket. They're a team which likes to play off of momentum as well. But at least looking at this opening game, while Lev do have some serious potential to threaten you on a few different maps, especially with the set strats that they like to run, PaperX should have the right ideas about getting around that. And in terms of firepower, we've seen a lot of teams in the past try and go blow for blow and butt heads with PaperX and play, you know, a similar game to them. Always tends to favor PaperX when we come into those sort of matches. My one to watch on Lev would probably be Sato, I think, because there's been, you know, a few situations where he had a difficult first map and then looked great over the next two maps. If he can start off strong, that's probably the win condition for Lev here against PRX, with it still being his first international event. I am going to go with PaperX, though. This feels like the more obvious choice for me, at least, in this opening round. Final game of our openers, Heretics versus Vitality. It is a rematch of the grand final in VCT EMEA Stage 1, and I'm going to keep this one fairly simple and go with Vitality, and I'll give you my reasons why. Heretics coming into this, of course, much like Lev, are going to be one of those teams which probably want to keep playing the Neon, and while Koshmaras can do that to an incredibly high level, there are still some question marks around the other agents that we can potentially see from him. I think that could be a bit of a hindrance. They have had time to prepare and account for these things, of course. And look, if we have Woot playing at a world-class level, as his Jet can be, as we've seen it in the past, think back to Shanghai, for example, a couple of years ago, then they can absolutely give Vitality a run for their money. But when I'm thinking about the map pool and considering it on the whole, I need to see a Heretics that has worked on their Pearl specifically, and probably their Breeze as well, because Vitality could very easily have had, you know, a 3-0 Grand Finals win. It was Lotus sandwiched in the middle of those maps, starting off on Breeze, Lotus, and then Pearl, where things fell apart for them. A couple of situations that they really should have closed out, not quite going their way. But when you look at this Vitality team, they are constantly improving. They have been. That's very much their story, a shared story with Heretics when you look at the context of how both of these teams qualified in playoffs. Heretics and Vitality both avoiding the 4th place seeded places, but yeah, still just sneaking into the upper bracket, at least initially. For Vitality, it has to be about full trust and belief in the system that they've now built around Yampi, with other players having the ability to contribute when needed. Sayonara has massively impressed with his mid-rounding. Coach Powell did a post-match interview with Sliggy after their qualification game against Foot, I believe it was, and on Fracture he was talking about how towards the end of the game Sayonara was fully calling the final rounds. Yampi obviously not as much involved, but for such a young player, only turned 18 this year, the amount of impact that he has, not just in the server, but outside of the server as well, in the comms, appears to be, you know, pretty ridiculous. I think he's shown that he's not afraid of playing in these big matches anymore, where we had those questions about his career coming out of challenges, I think it's fair to say, having not achieved any big silverware or anything too exciting, but obviously having massive plaudits from multiple different teams that have trialed him and played with him in the past, such as Fnatic, for example. So yeah, Heretics absolutely have potential to go deep in this tournament still, I think, and that kind of leans into where I'm headed. But Vitality for me in this rematch, with a little bit of the stage experience already under their belt and the map pool that they should have managed to figure out by now, I think are going to go ahead and take this one. Then looking into the upper bracket, first of all, G2 versus Foot. Now, based on what I've already said, I think, yeah, there is still quite a lot of overlap in terms of map pool here as well. Again, Lotus is probably one of those that you expect to come up. Foot looked pretty prepared for NRG on that map when we saw it. It was incredibly close in the end, but I think that was one which they just narrowly lost on. Foot were able to turn things around though, obviously, but now heading into this game against G2, this is a much more difficult team, I want to say. They've played America's teams in the past, you know, they will understand what it meant to beat NRG, for example. Think their Fracture is probably the strongest part of their map pool right now, I would argue. But coming into this G2 game, I think I do want to favor G2. The bracket sort of shapes up in a similar way to how it did at Santiago, where you've got G2 coming in off the back of what you expect to be a win against the CN team at the start. It was All Gamers previously. Here it's XLG versus Foot, who, in a similar way to Nongshim, I suppose, are playing a aggressive brand of Valorant with double duelist that's looking pretty effective right now. The difference is, in the past, G2 weren't great at double duelist in Santiago, and obviously Nongshim are a completely different level of team. Foot still have a lot to prove in that regard, I think, and despite as you know, how good they've been right now, they did still narrowly make it through from that 1-1 game. G2, on the other hand, feel like a dominant team, at least regionally, and then heading into this global event, I still feel pretty solid about how they've been looking on the whole. I'm going to go with G2 in this second round to move on to the upper final and the finals weekend specifically. I think this should be a fairly straightforward route in the upper bracket. If you go back in the past and look, G2 are one of the favorites and they have historically underperformed, at least making it into the top cut most of the time. And another one of those teams is PaperX. Following this up into the next game against Vitality, it was the same story for them to make the grand final at Santiago. Another one of those favorites, but they never really get off to the best of starts, I think, in international play, even regional play. Sometimes we do see them take that early loss and then just focus up and work on what it is exactly they need to then succeed. A lot of the time, it's little things like communication. You see it from their behind-the-scenes content that they show off. They just need to play as a team and really be super concise sometimes for what is an incredibly high-octane style that demands that extra attentiveness from you. Looking at how they did domestically, this is where the questions do start to come up for me, and I kind of alluded to it earlier with GE and Full Sense both already out of the tournament. They are now the one team region and have to fly the flag for the rest of Pacific, the region which has won every single Masters trophy so far in the last couple of years or so consecutively. So it's a streak which they want to keep going, and against Vitality, they're going to have had good preparation coming in. If they can dispatch Heretics this time around, they're going to be feeling the extra confidence as well. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on this team too quickly. Vitality is a roster with almost limitless potential when you consider the pickups that they made at the start of this year, the infrastructure that the organization has provided for them, the coaching staff as well, the fact that they have been showing consistent improvements regionally. Are they going to be able to catch PaperX by surprise here, or are some of those historical matchups maybe going to come into effect? I'm thinking of Chronicle and Scut from Fnatic last year. They weren't able to get past PaperX until Paris. You know what? I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here, and I think I might go with Vitality for this game. Now, my pick'ems are going to look awful if Heretics win this match, because obviously wouldn't have Vitality going through, and even then, if I were to pick PaperX, if they place against Heretics, they probably beat them, whereas I'm not sure if they beat Vitality. Yeah, I just have this feeling that they might drop off, as the Pacific team tends to do in these early rounds. At least they haven't found it to be too easy through uppers, at least in recent times, since they started winning trophies. You remember back in the day with tournaments like Copenhagen, for example, where they would cruise through uppers, like Champs 23 when they went through uppers, didn't end up winning. Lower bracket is where they feel most at home, I think. And yeah, just Vitality have a bit of an edge about them right now. I can see this G2 Vitality match being pretty exciting, and I can also just picture in my head some of the other matchups that this is going to create, such as an EDG PaperX rematch. I think I have them going in ahead of XLG in this regional head-to-head here. It was a pretty close series between the two, went all 5 maps, if I recall, in stage 1, but this EDG team is not to be underwritten, honestly. I think they have a very credible case for beating Foot in this opening game. I've decided to go with Foot, at least for now, on form. But against XLG, yeah, I think they are the last bastion of CN Valorant, and the ones which I probably have the most faith in. Then moving on to Leviathan versus Heretics. Here, I think between the two teams, it feels really rough to put one of these out 0-2, but this is an incredibly difficult start to the bracket for whoever it is that gets into this position first. A lot of people have Lev down as being a dark horse team, and qualifying 2-0 puts them in a pretty strong position to carry that notion forwards. When I go back though and I think about the matches that they had, 2-1 win against GE, took a little bit of time for them to warm up, and with NRG still being a quality team but maybe not showing us the best of themselves, I think I might go with Heretics here. I still have the faith that heading into, what is this? Half of the top 6 is going to be EMEA teams still in the competition. It's a little bit bold. Definitely showing that I do believe in our region's chances, at least to go deep. But in terms of winning the event, that's something completely different. Let's go ahead and fill out this next round of lowers. I think it's PaperX EDG. EDG do like to win this matchup in times gone by. They have done a pretty good job at putting PaperX to the sword. Can PaperX keep it going? I think so. I think I'm going to go with them for old time's sake, that I see them heading top 3 when I consider what the best teams are at this tournament right now. So I'll put them in over EDG, but it's going to be pretty close. They're going to have to find a way to contain Kung Kung on this op. I think maps like Split, Breeze, for example, maybe even Haven, he's going to look nasty there, so something that they're going to have to deal with. But then moving on to another regional matchup, Foot versus Heretics. Ooh, could Foot win this one this time against Heretics? Probably, but I think Heretics have a chance to scale themselves. I think I can see Heretics going kind of far in this lower bracket, at least winning this next game. G2 versus Vitality. This is going to be an absolute banger if we get it. Both of these teams with some serious tactical depth, quality players that stand out as the best in some of their roles. Durka back at a global where we haven't seen him for at least a year or so, and then G2 with all of the stars that they've got. Jorgamo playing multiple different agents across on the other side. I think that's going to be a really exciting game. I'm probably going to side with G2 though. I think this upper bracket looks so nice for them that at least having them as my solid option all the way through is where my head is at. Could I potentially flip this and go like Foot instead, PaperX, maybe? But I think this is at least the way that I'm leaning for now. So I'm going to go with G2 in this game. Moving on to PaperX versus Heretics. I think Heretics have done really well to get this far, but PaperX in the late game have a little bit more in the tank, and this is where they start to take teams apart when they show us their true tournament performance. So Heretics, I think, yeah, again, can be absolutely celebrated for how well they've done to qualify as first seed, find their first domestic trophy, kick on in this Masters bracket, but I think I go with PaperX there. Both of these games are played on the same day, so Vitality don't have an extra day of preparation heading into this one. There's not too many advantages they take from coming from the upper bracket, and I think PaperX, again, as one of these tournament favorites, just having them as this safety net through the lower bracket in this vein, where I've got G2 here, probably makes the most sense for me. I think Vitality definitely have given us all the belief in EMEA that our teams can perform at a super high level again, and I'm excited to see how they look by the time we get to Shanghai. But I probably go with PaperX here, and in this game against G2, I don't fully rate G2 being able to win an event until I see it. And right now, I still hold those reservations about myself. Can PaperX secure themselves a third back-to-back global final and win a second trophy, or is that too much to ask? I think G2 double ban, it could look really nice for them, to be fair. Maybe just go PaperX from lowers again. And just keep it simple, guys. Because I want to know what you think about this Masters London Playoffs bracket. This is one of the most difficult ones I've had to do so far. You'll notice there have been a lot of cuts as I've been going through my thoughts on who I want to pick. But yeah, my final choice, PaperX. I'm going to be backing the Ultramarine Dino W Gaming Army to go ahead and win Masters London. Let me know in the comments who it is that you've got lifting the trophy, and I will see you there on the stream. So make sure to subscribe to my YouTube, turn on notifications, or follow me on Twitch if that's your preferred streaming service. Once again, I've been Hazza. Hope we can get the gold buddy on this one. Not feeling entirely sure of myself just yet, but this is where I have settled for now. So let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all then. Much love. Bye-bye.